Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Rad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rad Gantos.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the late start today, but our building here on the corner of Sunflower and Bristol, for those who don't know, in Costa Mesa, is undergoing a major remodel. And
sure is.
Traffic is just messed up. There's actually, so if you're in the neighborhood, you're heading this way, try to avoid Bristol. Heading off the freeway because it's just backed up with a lot of service trucks and stuff like that. They're doing a work on the parking lot. It's all exciting though. I think they're going to be putting in a cafe down the bottom of the building.
And in a weird way, it fits into today's conversation on the Raad Life.
You always challenge me, and I always come through. See?
In a weird way, it's about adaptive reuse. What I think you just gave a talk on here.
Right? Yeah. So again, Paul stole my thunder. I couldn't close that, but even though I set it up, so. It doesn't matter. We're a team here.
You teed it up. I knocked it home.
So anyway, we do. We actually have two gentlemen here from a company called Designer Drains. And I want you guys to all go check out designerdrains.com while we're talking. And why are we talking about drains? Well, we're not really talking about drains. We're actually talking about how things that are commonplace in life can actually take on a different aspect, that they can be reinvented, that things are always constantly redesigned and improved.
So can I share while we were waiting for Rad to make his way through the traffic, we had a little conversation, and when they walked in, I'm the ordinary man here. I'm the guy that would say, why would you ever want
anybody who's been listening to this show for the last 3 years would not put the word ordinary
well,
and
maybe
you
not
in the same sentence.
So they walked in, and I'm typing. I said, "Okay, what do you guys here?" I never know who's coming in. What do you do? What's it? They start to show me the brochure, and I looked at thought to myself, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." You take a shower drain, and the ordinary
While
shower
he's
drain,
saying that, I'm going to just show the brochure
and
for
you
the live
hold,
feed.
and you suddenly put a custom design in that shower drain, a custom little cutout piece of a seashell or something there. And the minute they showed it to me, I went, "Oh my God!" And I did two things. One, I said, I got to have one of these things, because my wife will flip. And two, I was instantly reminded of a guy who came by my house a couple years ago, was just going door to door, and he had custom doorbells. Everybody's got the same doorbell that came with the tract home. At least I did. And I never thought of replacing the doorbell. It works. And it's just a button. And he came on and said,
came to your house to ring your bell.
And he rang my bell, and he said, I got these cool things. Here's what I'm doing. I'll do it in like 50, 60 bucks, and you get a little seahorse, or you get something there that looks cool. And I thought, yeah, my wife would flip over that. And all of a sudden, I get a smile every time I come home, and I look at the door. I don't have to ring the doorbell, but I look at the doorbell as I walk in, and I think, why not? Something I would have.
So are you using your wife as an excuse for you to buy something that's sort of foofy?
Yes.
That you have said that you've used your wife twice as an excuse.
And in neither case did she okay the purchase.
Did you still buy it?
Of course, I bought it.
So
and I said, "Look what I did for you, honey," and I got a big kiss.
Look what I did for you, honey.
Yeah.
Okay. The theme of the show. Look what I did for you, honey.
But you're probably right. I get a kick out of just seeing that.
So here's what's interesting about what Paul just shared. Unknowing to himself shared, right? And how this ties into some sort of targeted marketing. Guess what the profile of the person on the front cover of this brochure is? It's a lady.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's wearing the drain like an earring, right? So again, it's. I guess Paul will be wearing that as an earring.
Well, because the point is
what the reason behind that story is, right?
Because, guys, my first reaction literally was to laugh when they showed me this. I thought, what a ridiculous thing. Only stupid rich people would have a custom drain. And then suddenly, the more I'm looking
you really
at it,
shouldn't talk about yourself like that.
and all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, that's really cool. Why didn't somebody think? So bring in your guests and tell where did this epiphany come from? Why did nobody else do it?
Gentlemen, introduce yourselves.
My name is Peter Papadatos.
And I'm Robert Hernandez.
And you guys are both from Designer Drains.
That's right.
And where is Designer Drains located?
We're in Montclair, California.
Montclair, California. Do you guys do pretty much all your fabrication stuff at your facility in Montclair?
We do. We do most of the cutting, most of the designing. We don't do all of the polishing,
Right.
but we do most of the other
So
elements.
how in the world did you come up? I've walked over my drain, every day I've lived in the house for 20 years almost. Never once have I ever thought, gee, I should
I was
replace
going
it.
to say, there's very few. There's few things in life that you encounter on a daily basis.
Yeah.
A cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You know, your drain.
Your carpet
Yeah.
or something, I
Yeah,
suppose.
you
I mean,
do.
we've
You do.
replaced the carpet.
So in
'cause-
a way, you have an intimate relationship with your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're very particular which cup you may want to drink out of.
Right.
You know, what plate you want to have your breakfast on. There's a routine and a ritual in the morning, which includes a shower, hopefully.
And there's even a,
which is intimate.
which is very
there's
intimate.
even a bigger thing
I mean,
here.
you're pretty exposed at that
Yeah,
point.
you're pretty exposed.
You're pretty exposed.
This is a show about aging, ostensibly, and design, and all the other
Why,
things that
why
you
did
guys
you
do.
have to put the word aging right after I said exposed? That's not really a good visual.
That's true. Because the point I was making with it is my parents lived in what was considered an upper middle class neighborhood in suburban Detroit. Big houses, big yards, big
Small
old tract
drains.
homes. They never, in all the years they lived, they sold the house in the late 70s or early 80s. I think it was built in the early 60s or something. When that house and all of the houses in the neighborhood, none of the women ever changed the kitchen. None of them ever upgraded the bathrooms. Those were unimportant rooms. The living room, that was important. The dining room, oh my God, we had to have special furniture and stuff in the dining room. The family room, we had to have goofy wood paneling and stuff in the family room to make it feel like a cabin or something here. The kitchen and the kitchen and the bathrooms were never thought of. My mother would have been happy to spend money had she ever.
And
nobody
yet,
did that
And
then.
yet, anybody from a resale value perspective
Today.
will tell you that bathrooms and kitchens are
Number
the
one.
number one
right.
return on investment
Yes.
in a remodel.
A couple years ago, so I have a house, a tract house, is 20 years old. My wife says 5 years ago, we got to upgrade the bathrooms. Why? We're not going to live in the house forever. Exactly. If you want to resell this house, you can't have old funky bathrooms, and you can't have the old funky kitchen.
And we've talked about the fact that those bathrooms and kitchens, depending on where you're located, if you're a desirable location, if you actually then also incorporate, which doesn't cost you money to incorporate, it just costs you money to get a little bit of additional sophisticated advice on. But if you actually incorporate into your design of the master bathroom and the kitchen, aging or ageless approach to how you
I like that,
remodel
ageless, yeah, right.
you remodel it.
No
right?
lip for the bathtub.
All counters
for the
all counters at 36. You don't have higher counters. You put 2 cents, 20 cents worth of blocking in the wall before you actually close it up with expensive marble and tile. So, heaven forbid, you should put a grab bar in there. You're not having to tear out the wall to make
Yeah.
sure that there's enough backing for the grab bar. $100 grab bar, $30,000 worth of tile, or remodel in the bathroom,
Right.
and you basically are, oh my God, now I have to basically put in a grab bar,
Yeah.
and guess what?
Got to break it all up.
You got to
Gotta
break
tear
it all up.
down.
Right. So 20 cents of blocking in that wall
So much sense.
preventively makes a lot of sense. So anyway,
And I wish we'd thought about that. I wish I'd known you when we did this because it was prior to meeting you. Because we did redo
But
all
you-
the bathroom, all stuff. And at some point, if we stayed there long enough, we probably would
but
have
you know,
grabbed.
but you
and
know
we'd
what-
have to
but
break
you know
all
what's
this stuff up.
fascinating? You know what's fascinating about that? Is you didn't need to know me because you actually took care of your mom and dad when they were aging.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
you didn't apply any of the knowledge base
No.
that you had. But then again, you know what? We've been doing this show for 3 years, and you still haven't applied any of the knowledge
That's
base,
true,
right?
too.
That we
That's a good
basically
point.
it's shared with us generously on the
So
air.
you've struck three themes here. One, in today's world, what we used to think of as utilitarian and I'm never going to fix when I was a kid, now we have options like designer
Sure,
drains,
yeah.
designer doorbells, and all these other things. That's one. Two, the world has shifted where we place an importance on these utilitarian areas, the garage, the bathroom, the kitchen that everybody ignored. And three, to Rad's point, if you want to stay in your house or you want to get the most, that house is my savings plan. I got to get when I sell that baby, that's it.
But here's where I'm going to add another layer to that conversation. You go, well, okay, fine, I'm going to use it, but then those modifications I did, if they're in that capacity, they're not going to be appealing, and now my house is at a disadvantage. Well, two things. First, all you need is one person to buy a house. You're not trying to sell it to 40 people.
Right.
So
that's
all you
true.
need is just one person to register, right?
Yes.
And the likelihood of you finding somebody that's going to register with the fact that the house is ageless and multi-generational friendly, with people that are affluent, deep-pocketed, and maybe wanting to move into your desirable area, that house that you have basically now sophisticatedly with hopefully either a very
With
deep
taste and
knowledge,
style,
either a
right.
very deep knowledge of how to go about it, or with the services of a qualified designer or consultant to help you through the process of making sure this is right, your house will now, in fact, not be a detriment, but it will already be attractive to that person who's aging, who has affluent, deep pockets, that's moving from an inland area to the coast, for example,
Right.
that's looking for that house that they don't have to do anything to,
Yeah.
that they can simplify their life, not have to remodel. Turnkey, but it actually has those things factored in so that their house, and it's not just baby boomers, I'm an Xer, we're coming in right in behind that thing.
You guys are wannabes.
And
you wanna
and
do
then the
whatever we do.
millennials are larger than the baby boomers, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, they are.
and you know what? Unless somebody's going to go cybernetic on everybody, and you're not going to have any bad knees, or you're not going to have limited mobility as you get older. It's going to hit every one of us. Nobody's getting out of this alive.
Right.
No.
Yep.
And
Right?
which is the other, I guess, the fourth. I talked about, the fact that we've suddenly got a market to upgrade utilitarian parts of the house, the bathroom, the garage, and everything. We've also got an interest in doing it, and we think that's how we'll get the most value out of the home. The other thing is what I didn't anticipate when we built our bathroom 5-6 years ago, redid it,
That
remodeled
you're never
it.
going to get use of it.
No, that we're never going to leave.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I did it with the expectation we'll upgrade it for
and
them
leave and sell it.
and leave and sell it. 5 years later, we're still there, and we're thinking, I'm in my early 60s. I might stay there for another 5-10 years.
So let's talk about that aspect for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't usually
I might
usually
never
get an
leave it.
opportunity. Okay, but what you just did is you teed me off to this.
Yeah.
The real estate professional business side of it, things, has tried to ingrain in people for generations that as you get older, what do you do to your house? You simplify, you scale down,
Right.
You downsize.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're trying to do that. We're trying to get rid of junk and
Right, but
talking
no,
about
no,
downside.
but it's not about simplifying your life and what you have in your home. The real estate business wants you. The real estate industry would rather have everybody who hits a certain age sell their home, move to something smaller.
Yeah.
Couple of things. It frees up that inventory in a desirable, most likely built-out area.
Clearly.
Right. It also then causes for 2 transactions to take place.
Right.
Right. And here's where it does not make sense to me.
Okay. Because
This
you're right.
indoctrinated behavior pattern.
You started in, and if you look at the master plan communities that Irvine started all over the country and now are all over South County, we've had people in talk about this from Irvine County. The idea was a complete life cycle. You started off in an apartment, and then you moved to the condo, and then you moved to the small zero lot line, town or zero lot line house, and then you move to a bigger house, and at some point you peak out wherever that is, and then it's when your kids move out. You start going backwards.
You're
right
an empty
back there.
nester,
You go right
terminology
back
that goes
down
with
the
this
chain.
language.
And
right?
eventually you end up in an apartment as an old senior.
So
you know.
here's what it.
You go up, you go down.
Here's
Full
what-
circle.
Here's
Full
what
circle.
where that never made sense to me.
Okay.
Now maybe part of it is I come from an extended family,
Right.
so it was never a house with only one generation in it. There was always at least on a regular basis visits by multiple generations.
Because you live in, you grew up in an ethnic-based community. I grew up in a homogenized, whatever you want to call it, Americanized community. I don't have any extended family. I didn't have, and living with us. Don't have any experience with it. Nobody around. We didn't have grandma staying with us. We don't have. I have my aunt that I take care of.
But you know what she
lives somewhere else.
You know what you also didn't have.
What?
You didn't have, because you are part of, but you didn't have a previous generation that was in numbers and aging and staying alive longer to where that was part of your life.
Oh, no, they
you,
died,
You,
yeah.
you are that generation.
That's true,
right?
So your point is well taken, and I just want to hit that point because when they're building new homes, for example, the Chinese market, they want to put grandma in the back.
But
And I think you grew up in an
but-
Arab-based community where grandmas and grandpas
right,
and all this
and you
stuff's
can
there.
argue that the diversity of the United States across the board is not, and more specifically in areas like Southern California, the higher diversity of these communities basically even makes it more or less meaningful that old doctrine would apply. But here's
Right.
where the basic human instinct component of it to me never made sense.
Okay.
You're getting older.
Yeah.
You're having diminishing capabilities.
Right.
And I'm going to basically ask you to move out of a familiar environment and put you in another environment that is completely unknown to you, in a neighborhood where you have to relearn everything down to where you
Right.
get your groceries from.
New people.
New people. You have no support system that you've established over the last 15, 20 years of basically living in your neighborhood. And that doctrine never really even had a factor of medical or diminished capacities other than like that are severe enough that you would be housed somewhere, because they were asking you to still buy another place, a smaller place, not move into assisted
Here's
living.
what you missed, though. You deny the fact of what they wanted to do with old people is round them up and warehouse them somewhere.
I didn't.
So you create communities where.
But that's why I kept that part of the conversation out of it, Paul.
You train them.
I'm not
to
talking about
give up what they have to settle for less, because eventually I'm going to put you in a home. And you're going to have nothing but a room. So I start by getting you to downsize, and eventually you go back to a room in an apartment-like setting, in a warehouse where I take care of you. It's cost-effective. It's not fun for you, but it's cost-effective for me. Take you out where the land is cheap and move you out.
Way to take a conversation where I was going down a path of empowerment and make it one out of complete desperation and despair.
Well,
right?
because that was the model, whether they admitted it or not. That was the societal model. Round up the old people and house them.
But to almost a point of ridiculous, the motivation behind that model, if you will call it, was moving real estate property.
Well, that too,
right? I mean, bottom line is that.
Buying.
So here's the reality. Okay, anybody who says, because the current trends, and they've been going on for a while. I mean, 2008, when I became certified aging in place, IARP had a study that basically said 87% of people want to age in their own home. 1, 2. Okay, we had an economic crisis, which basically meant that if I followed the doctrine, according to the real estate business or industry, if I followed that doctrine, I would have sold my home at the bottom of the market and basically took a bath on it because the house is too big for me and I need to scale down. Right? I'll add to the fact that basically nothing else covers my expenses for being housed in assisted living, and therefore really my piggy bank is my house, which if I was smart enough not to buy into the fact that I needed to basically use it as a cash cow and refinance it 15 times over the last decade, right? Because that's what everybody did and put their money in some rental property in Arizona, right? If I didn't do that, that is my nest egg.
Right.
That is my primary asset.
It's my primary asset.
Right. So if you were going to ride out the economic crisis, and your house had to be modified in order to allow you to ride out 5 to 10 years in there, to amortize it longer, to be able to sell it at a better market, all those factors flew right in the face of that doctrine. So why I'm saying this is because these expenses, these things that we're talking about, these sort of what seemingly is, to your point, is like, oh, what's this foofy thing that only rich people can afford?
Right.
You're living in that house.
Right.
That is part of your experience and existence on a daily basis. I'm going to do something that these guys probably have no clue that I'm going to do right now. Okay, and it includes them giving something away. So I like that. I'm doing that right now. Peter's going, oh my God, what's happening?
Oh my God.
Here's what's happening. Okay, anybody who's listening to the show now or until let's put it this way. Let's say until Thanksgiving.
Sure.
Because it's going to be podcast, right? From between now and Thanksgiving, right? Sure. And we'll come back and we'll do this around Thanksgiving, okay? And why Thanksgiving? Because that's a time when a lot of people actually have people that visit, and homes have to be visitable for people that are older, okay? Right. But here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I am going to say that I want people that are listening to this show to pay attention to how many times they stare at their drain. How many times do you come in contact with a drain in your house, be it the kitchen, the bathroom, the sink, the shower? Okay,
backyard.
Okay, and I want you to be honest and basically let us know if this is something you are aware of or not aware of, and in fact, okay, is it something that you come in contact with enough that it should maybe. I mean, heck, maybe even clean it every once in a while. Right?
Yeah, that's for
sure. Polish it every
once
in a while, right?
Sure.
And here's the reward. I'm going to let these guys pick whoever that person is, right? And we're going to basically give them a custom drain cover.
That's awesome. We could do that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll do it with either one of the designs that you guys have or something that could.
And how do we pick this person? Do they have to write in, call in?
Yes, you're gonna have to. You can no calls.
No,
there's nobody calls.
Nobody
we don't answer the phone
Nobody
anymore.
texts.
We actually canceled the service. We have no call.
No more home phones.
Actually, Peter, Paul, what is the? It's like the Vatican here. Peter and Paul. Paul, what is the number people can call in on?
If they are so moved, they can call us in 949-330-7761. 949-330-7761. Operators standing by.
And even if they're not moved and they think we're just all washed up, you just
just call us.
I'm using those terminologies.
Or text us at the hashtags OC Talk
OC Talk Radio on Twitter. And you can always send us your either a message or email. I'll give you my email address is Raad, R-A-A-D period Gantus, G-H-A-N-T-O-U-S @gmail.com, or reach out to the Raad Life, R-A-A-D-L-I-F-E, on Facebook. I want to know if today what we did is caused you to actually step out of your sort of state of being unconscious and became aware of the fact that you actually have A, drains in your house, and that B, those are things that could actually be more interesting. I mean, I know about myself. I like to take long showers, and I'm basically in that shower a long time in the morning. And no, don't go there, right? But
I could come up with lots of things.
No, it's because I do a sort of a eucalyptus spray in winter, and I do a neti pot, which is why I'm healthy and robust, and you basically are sitting there basically aged and decrepit.
You're the ones that you're the people that the Trump voters hate back in the Midwest. Here, how you feel good.
I got a newsflash for you, Bubba. You're not in the Midwest no more. Okay, Toto. But so we're going to give away one of those drains, and how are people going to get selected? I want you to get creative. I want you to get creative with it's something as mundane as a drain. That kind of rhymes.
Pedestrian, very pedestrian.
Right, very pedestrian. But get creative. Okay, you want to do it in a form of a poem. You want to do it in a couple of limericks. You want whatever way. I want you to engage with your drain, and share that with us.
And whoever does it most creatively,
whether you keep it clean or not, it's up to you, because and figuratively and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now they asked me a question. I laughed when they came in. I heard the product. I literally laughed in front of them. Sorry, I hope they didn't feel bad.
Not at all.
No.
And then I looked at it, and they showed me the sample, and I went, "Oh my God, that's pretty cool. I would like that. I would like that." But I'm going to pretend
it doesn't
I'm
have
getting
sharp
it from my
edges, by
wife.
the way, so you can't use it as a throwing star. But it is very cool.
But you know what I didn't
Robert,
know?
can you hold that closer to the camera?
Definitely
Let people
can.
see
So
it a
they
little bit?
said, do you have a round
Get
or a
closer to the camera.
square drain? And I had to admit, I don't know even. I stand.
Are you a
up-
square?
I stand in the shower every day.
Are you a square? I mean,
I-
you're a hippie generation. Are you a square hippie generationer?
I hope not.
Baby
but
boomer.
I don't know whether I'm a square or round. I don't know what my drain
Wow.
is.
Okay, so we'll add that to the part that they basically
I
have
can't
to
tell you right
You
now.
have to call us or you have to write us and connect with us and tell us: are you square?
Mhm.
Are you round?
I hope I'm not square. I
Okay.
never wanted to be square.
What does a drain mean to you now that you have become aware of it?
Yeah.
Okay, are you having a spiritual experience with your drain? Okay, but basically, I know this is fun and playful, but the point of it is this, okay? Being conscious of something that you interact with on a daily basis that you basically don't even see.
I ignored it.
Okay.
Like the doorbell until the guy pointed it out. Now the drain, all these little things I never think of. I just walk past them. I interact with them every day or on a continual basis.
If I may, this is really about an exercise of being conscious and being aware. And sadly, we live in a society where we're not even aware of our neighbors.
No.
That's true.
No.
I couldn't tell you all my neighbors' names.
Okay.
I really couldn't.
Right. So take this as an opportunity to just raise a consciousness. I know it's kind of goofy that it's about your drain, but the reward in it is that you will get to actually engage with these gentlemen in a creative process where you can actually customize your drain. There will be a one only if you choose to. Otherwise, there's a whole range of options.
Oh, we have so many designs.
Right, so many designs, but
So can I suggest something? We've done all the talking because we're having our own epiphany of interacting with your products. Tell us your epiphany. How did you?
Hold on a second. Okay. No, we talked about the manufacturer. Okay.
No, but I know why did they do it?
But I want to know because is this something? I mean, how long have you guys been doing custom drains?
And why?
At least 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do before?
We're still doing it, but we did like service for water jet cutting. So aerospace, we did aerospace work. We did architectural work. We did work with artists, for artists. We did signage. We did custom cars, Navy work. We did military work.
And Peter, for people that are not familiar with what water jet cutting is, just really quickly.
Yeah.
It's a process of cutting
Metal.
with metal, wood,
Oh, you can cut wood
fiber,
with it too. Yeah.
anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
Plexi, I mean
Anything.
Yeah.
Using high pressure water with an abrasive.
And the reason why it is detailed, like some of the people that when Robert held up the drain, you can see it's pretty tight corners and a good amount of detail on this, is because it's actually connected. If I'm wrong, just correct me. But it's connected to an actual design package or CAD drawings where there's a translation from drawing through the machine
Yeah,
in the actual
yeah.
execution of the cutting.
You could basically look at a water jet as a giant printer. So you have
Cutter.
some printer. If you think of it as a printer,
Yeah.
as a bubble jet printer, has
Right.
it, or a laser jet printer, as it prints.
Yeah.
We don't print, we cut.
Right.
So we can cut.
But
with
it follows the
Right.
same
It's,
path.
follows the
and-
pattern
well,
that's laid
it's
out.
taking out the stuff that it's almost like a negative print.
Yeah, it follows a vector drawing.
A vector drawing, right.
Yeah.
So anybody who's done any, like a logo or something like that, and the reason why I'm taking a minute to explain that is because it shows you that that piece of metal is really a canvas that you could
Definitely.
do
Yes.
pretty much limitless things with.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It-
can people give you their own design? Can they say, I want this to be my name or
Oh,
my
yeah.
family
All the time.
crest?
All the
or
time.
Yeah.
All the
All
time.
the time. We get that all the time. We had, what do we have? That one gentleman that who made this apartment building in San Francisco. I forget what he did. The signature.
The embassy dude?
No, the signature. He did the Hancock.
Oh, Hancock.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We had a builder
Yeah.
out in Philadelphia. His house was being built on Hancock Street,
Yeah.
and he wanted to do something completely custom.
Right.
And
The famous
we
John
did
Hancock
John Hancock
signature on the
cover.
so it's
Constitution.
branding.
On the Independent
It's a
Declaration of Independence.
form that you can use for branding.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure is. Yeah.
And just since we're on it, Peter or Robert, something as like a standard size drain, okay? If it's something that's from your library of designs,
Right.
what does that run somebody? And I know the finishes vary and all this
Yeah.
stuff, but what does that
Give us a range,
run
a
some-
rough
give us a
idea.
range.
Our standard size drains start at 3¼ inches round, and they start at $65, and they work their way up because we have 4-inch and 5-inch square drains that can run 140, 160, depending on the finish.
And is that relatively equal if it's a custom design, or do you just charge an upcharge for the design?
We usually charge a design fee.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the actual item is relatively the same, but then there's that
Right.
other layer of the
Right.
design and handling it. Okay,
Yeah, unless somebody
Right.
sends us in an actual CAD drawing and takes
Yeah.
that work out, it's
right.
easier
So,
for us
so,
to
so
translate.
it's very minimal, actually, in the overall cost. I'm just speaking
Really
as an
minimal, yeah.
interior designer.
$100 for
It's a very
something
minimal
that's
cost.
pretty cool.
Cheapest and most economic remodel you can possibly do.
Right, and to be honest, you're probably paying, anywhere between, depending on how pedestrian it is, anywhere between $20 to $40 anyway for
right.
that drain assembly. So
What's the new one at Home Depot if I just go buy a round one to replace
like
it?
under $30.
30 bucks,
Yeah.
Yeah,
under
20
30 bucks.
Yeah.
30 bucks.
Right, so you're about a quarter to a third there anyway,
Right.
and so this again, if you're doing that master shower, if you're doing something like that, and it's for you, it's an opportunity to do that. It becomes really real when you have multiple units and you're trying to connect it with a branding component.
Yes.
That maybe it's a repetitive design.
So
that
my
exists somewhere
question
else.
to Rod Gantos, who I have to do a shout out, was wonderful at the recent CLIC conference, the California Investment Lodging Conference. If you haven't gone online, go check it out. Rod hosted a panel there, had a booth there and hosted a panel with his co-host on our other show, Check Out California, where they talk about investing in
Craig Sullivan, who's the person who puts the exhibit.
So he put on the conference.
on.
Rod was
We
moderated a panel
designed
on,
the stage, moderated the panel,
and it was all about adaptive.
My panel was
reuse.
about adaptive reuse, was about deep renovation, relative obviously to the hotel industry, but we dealt with property improvement plans, basically, where people have existing facilities that they want to upgrade them. They
PIP
want to
plans.
but they're called PIP,
Right.
right? So one of the questions we asked was when to PIP and when to flip.
Yeah, I thought
Right.
that was clever.
But there's a trend, and again, it's because of places that they're either built out or urban centers that you can't really get. You're not going to get a building approved that's a certain height now in current conditions, current regulations, whatever. And so there's been a movement for adapting buildings that never were intended to be hotels into hotels. And
Banks,
that-
fire stations.
Well, and that-
old
and
Old
that-
buildings.
warehouses.
Right.
Yeah,
Detroit
warehouse.
had one hotel building that was actually a adaptive reuse of their fire station downtown. That market is probably depressed to the point where it was very, very, cost effective to buy that building. But they could have torn out, they could have whatever. I don't know if it was historically listed or not. But in that particular case, if it was historically listed, they probably got tax credits on
Right.
it. And and it probably had a lot of finishes. I remember one time the head of the National Trust for Historical Preservation in the United States actually got awarded by an environmental group, a green award, because he had basically pursued a philosophy of that the most green building out there is the one that's still standing.
Yeah, that's true.
And not one that's going into the dump,
that's
right?
interesting.
Right. So, and the construction, if you look at construction that was done 50 years ago, especially in commercial, the grade of steel, all that stuff that went into it, they were built in a very solid manner. In some cases, they didn't even have the benefits of technologies like really advanced zoning for air conditioning, so they had to deal with it in a different manner that was more, achievable but cost effective. And so those technologies are still valid today. You
mean airflow through the building?
Airflow through building, orientation of the building, open, circulation, chases in the middle that would suck up hot air. It goes on and on. But the point of it was that here's a particular situation. So let's say that you have a building, there was one that was proposed. I think maybe it's underway at Asbury Park in New York State. Is it New York State? I think, right? Asbury Park, Jersey. Sorry,
the
Jersey.
Shore.
What am I talking about?
Bruce
the boss.
Springsteen. Yeah, come on.
Sorry, Bruce. So there's an old post office building from the 1950s, 1960s, a modern kind of international style architecture, and they were turning into a hotel. So there were opportunities.
Look what Trump did, our favorite buddy Trump, but look what Trump did with the famous government post office in Washington, D.C., this giant building that went back to the turn of the century, and he turned it into the Trump Hotel.
Just because we're talking about drains, you don't mean to have to take this show and
make it a little political. Throw down the drain.
Throw down the drain. And don't get me started on that, because there was an interesting thing that happened projected on the front of that building. Anyway, but yes, to your point, it's an old building that was repurposed.
Right.
Okay. And there's a lot of smarts in the business side of it, too, for that. Is not just an esoteric factor. But additionally, usually in those situations, somebody had already expended monies on some sort of detail and branding. So if it's the U.S. Post Office building in New York, in Washington State, D.C., to your point, everything from the architectural visual of the building to some finishes that were maybe unique to that property, to the logo of the post office, maybe that has changed over time, but that is existing somewhere in that building. If you're a smart person, you would tie the story and the authenticity of the building to those kind of things.
Right.
Yep.
And where that can translate is nobody would argue with you that, oh, look, you have it on a wrapper on the soap, or you have it on a business card, right? Well, this is very similar when it comes to that. And you're looking at 300 keys, 400 keys.
Yeah.
So, at $100 a pop, that's still a lot of impact for low cost.
So here's my question to you.
Or cost effective.
My perception of the hotel industry is dated in the 70s and 80s and 90s here. When I was younger and traveling more often. I don't travel very often anymore. I was surprised at the number of major chains, Hilton and Marriott's, they're trying to make boutique feeling
why did I just
new
flash
chains.
on the theme music from Vacation when you were telling me the story?
Yeah, well, that's me.
Holiday Road.
That's about where I'd stay. And so we'd go out on the whether I was for business or personal, the family, we would go stay at a chain, and the chain was very antiseptic, the Holiday Inn, the Marriott, whatever it was. And when I went in there, my perception was they had the cheapest fixtures that they could in there. It was not designed to have me hang out in the room. It was just utilitarian and functional.
Well, there's still hotels that are very much like a traveler's hotel.
Yeah.
But I think also the nature of traveling and business and conducting it has changed. You need certain different set of amenities. You need rooms that are basically sound insulated. You need to have support services. Perfect example of adaptive reuse, right? Things that don't usually get factored in is you go into a situation like that. It's an awesome building. We're going to adaptively reuse it. Okay, did you factor in your cost? And I just did a paper that I posted on LinkedIn. Anybody who's interested can check it out. It's called "Are You Dipping Your Toe in the Water, or Are You Diving in the Deep End of the Pool?"
Right.
Okay. Because you may be going down a path of thinking, "Oh, this is awesome," da 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 da. But okay, in your pricing, in your budgeting, did you price out the fact that you have enough zones for electrical lighting for what you're wanting to do? Is your current plumbing system in there actually adequate, or is it going to have to be upgraded, right? Did you account for in there while you're opening your walls to actually upgrade your Wi-Fi or whatever that you need, because those are amenities that are expected now, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff that's sort of behind the scenes. So yes, we're talking about a drain, and we're talking about the cover of the drain, which is sort of like the culmination of the story. But there's a system behind it. There's a functionality that is unavoidable. I mean, if your plumbing system is not up to grade, you're going to have to upgrade your plumbing system. Otherwise,
Right.
I don't care what nice tub you put in there or what
it's
tile you
not
put
gonna
in there.
function.
That room backs
So
up.
my question to you, though, you're going to be their market researcher. You now did this conference, and here's Marriott's and Hilton's. They have all these cheaper boutique.
Right.
They're smaller footprints. They're more minimalistic designs, but they're designed to appeal to Robert, the hip young millennial.
They
who's
still
gonna
have to.
come.
They still have to compete in that business, in that market, regardless what their room rate is, and depending on the type of hotel or depending on the type of business it is, there's a ceiling to what your room rate is. It's market driven, right? But you still have heavier competition.
Right.
You've got a whole diversity of product out there in terms of hospitality that you can choose from, including Airbnb. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I stayed in a place in Austin, and it was an apartment in an apartment complex that was purchased. That was basically dialed in almost like it's a mini hotel. They had their own wrappers on the soap. They had their own, like text for this and text for that. You want groceries. Everything was branded, down to the little, record player that was from Anthropology and a couple of. Mixed between between rockabilly and country LPs that are in the drawer, right? And then there was some kind of indie music posters on the walls, right? It was just enough of a thing to give a brand and mix. Now, interestingly,
But it was Airbnb.
No, it wasn't.
Or
It was
something
a
like that.
small group of people that had bought like 12 units around the city of Austin, and basically dialed it in that way.
And how many rooms were in this little mini
This
hotel?
was 1 or 2 rooms in this particular building. It's not a hotel. And then another building somewhere else in town basically had another 2 rooms.
Oh,
So
wow.
instead of building a property of 20 rooms, you basically purchased 20 spaces in different buildings
Wow.
That's
around
interesting.
town.
Never heard of
and
that.
then basically did that. And the interesting thing about that is, here was a perfect example that they went through all this effort to brand their space.
Right.
Something like this.
Easy.
Something like a custom color on a sink bowl, is the kind of stuff, when Virgin first started, is the kind of stuff that helps differentiate your brand.
I'll give you another example that I saw years ago. Now it's taken for granted. I remember I was at that first wave when I was out on the road where they went from the straight shower curtain to the curve that
yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". Every time I move, I'm bumping into the shower curtain all
You
the
know
time.
why they did that?
I don't know why, but it was certainly more comfortable
They
to big
did
guys
that
like
because
me.
it was more costly to change the tub.
Hmm.
To make the bathroom remodel and change the tub and make it bigger was too costly. So what they did is they reskinned the tub, put in a new liner,
Made it
and
feel
then
bigger.
and they made a curtain that basically bent out so that the tub felt bigger.
It did. I appreciated
It
that,
worked.
and I would stay in
They
places
sold the heck
if
out of
they
it.
had that.
Imagine having 500 unit
Oh.
in a hotel, and you just sold 500 curtain rods, and they had to be where they basically still were supported by the width of the opening
Right,
and the existing support
right.
in the walls.
Yeah,
And if it
worked
was
the same
that
way.
easy, where I could get a handyman or an in-house engineering group that's on the property to basically roll in one room after the other and upgrade that, put a new coat of paint on it, and my bathrooms look like this.
Yeah,
And
it's
me,
new.
who didn't care what the room felt like, who didn't shop because of the feel and the brand and all that kind of stuff. I wanted convenience and I wanted price. I wanted a utilitarian bed to stay in. I wanted Motel 6, that type of stuff. I would pick a place over another simply because it had the better shower. Because it was
So
more,
let-
the
let-
few minutes I was there, it felt
let-
better
let-
to me.
let me
So
put-
imagine if the whole room felt better, had a branding, all these little amenities that made me suddenly feel hip and cool.
Well, we
and
use
at home.
we
and-
use WaterJet a lot. I mean, I did custom screens last year for a spa in Anaheim Hills where we did basically WaterJet MDF for a pattern.
I don't remember you calling us.
Yeah.
Nobody told me you were
I
right.
remember you calling us.
Well taken.
And so if you think of it as a creative outlet because of the technology that Peter and,
Very
and Robert
precise
have access to,
cutting.
we are talking about drain, but the capabilities of that, and then layering the brand through multiple materials where you have interpretation of the same pattern or complementary patterns or things of that nature. You can light behind acrylic, things of that nature. This becomes really more than just a drain conversation we're having here. It's really about opening up your creative outlet that then translates into your built environment.
And to go back full circle, simple stuff. My perception when you build a 500 key hotel or a 200 or whatever is, you want to keep the cost as low as possible per room. And yet, I'm not happy with the utilitarian space anymore with the ugly one painting screwed to the wall and the TV bolted down, and that's all I got, you know, and maybe there's a
I
coffee
don't know where
maker.
the heck you're staying these days, because that doesn't exist
I know,
anymore.
right? But that was for
Actually, I think they charge you more for that because it's nostalgia.
it's nostalgia. So what you're saying is a simple $50 floor drain, a simple little flourish here and there,
Yeah.
gives it a whole different feeling, not just for the young
It
millennial
helps-
who wants to be
it
hip,
helps,
but for me.
It helps affirm, okay,
Your
or
choice.
continue the layering of the story and the brand.
We have customers who we've sold drains to, who, like you said, awaken to the possibilities of other things being branded or customized, and so they will create customized cabinets for them. We'll create customized fireplace screens for them.
Fireplace screens.
Yeah.
That's one I've actually been thinking about here.
With any design that they like, or they can choose the same theme that they've already purchased on the drain. And so it's true.
It's really opens up the imagination,
Yeah.
and it's something. And it's, if you really think about it, we encounter these kind of situations all the time, where you have something that's very mundane that you take for granted.
You
and
don't
then
even think
and
about
then you
it.
see something in a different light, interpreted differently
Yes.
on that mundane element,
Yeah.
and it gets your juices flowing.
What else can I do?
What else can I do?
Do
And
you
so-
do custom fireplace screens? Because that
Oh,
was
yeah.
one we were thinking
sure.
of doing.
Oh,
We got to
yeah.
talk about
Oh,
that,
yeah.
because I just have a.
Window treatments, fireplace screens, like I already
What would you
mentioned.
do for a window treatment? I'm trying to think of what's a.
Oh, we did a house. I forget where it was. Where we they instead of having the blinders that they usually have the old-fashioned houses, they had
right.
we,
Sort of like our studio blinders here. Right?
So
yeah,
you-
they had these really cool carved out elements of design.
I mean,
think it was
think about anything in wood, anything in plexi,
it was
anything
wood.
in
Yeah,
metal.
Yeah,
You know, MDF or veneer.
yeah,
Any of that stuff can be cut with a water jet.
Yeah.
So you don't have to end up with shutters that are basically solid. You could do whatever pattern you want.
Yeah.
You could do valances for windows and
That's
then
right.
put fabric behind them or not.
Yeah.
You know,
sconces. you can do
Sconces.
When we bought the house,
especially with LED lighting sources now, you can
Yeah.
pretty much do sconces out of anything.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
as long as the LED light itself is UL approved, that
Yeah.
is just a casing
just a casing.
that goes on top of it.
Yeah,
when we bought our house, one of the upstairs bedrooms was the kids' bedroom, and we didn't have a little kid, but we kept the room it was because I liked the little, what do you call the windows that are above the windows, those little upper windows that are just there to let light in, the little square.
Clear story windows, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's the real window, and then up above it is these little squares that let in additional light. And he had put shutters up there,
Yeah.
and he had carved in, you know, animals, so it was for the kid.
Yeah.
And I thought, how cool! Rather than just putting solid wood shutters like we have down, we installed later downstairs for the same space, so we could
Yeah.
block off the light sometimes and open it up.
yeah.
I thought he did it with like a jigsaw or something.
Think about you were mentioning ethnic elements. Okay, think
Right.
about anything that's Moorish. Think about anything where
Oh.
where sunscreening was a factor. They didn't do curtains. They did something that would actually help basically
Diffuse it, yeah.
And delusion designs are
And
amazing.
delusion designs.
Yeah.
You know, like privacy screens, right? Now you don't have to just buy it. You can actually
Make it.
execute something unique,
Yeah.
meaningful to you
Right.
in that environment in which you live and spend a lot of time with or work
Wow.
Makes it personal.
in. Yeah.
You get me excited about
So-
this. Where
so-
do we invest in this business here?
So I want to
endless
just
possibilities.
ask something, Peter, because
Yes.
I noticed
We're down to the last
I mean,
10 minutes.
well,
We'll give
I-
you a little extra since you started late. We'll go another 15 minutes here. But
That's only because you're trying to get a fire screen out of it.
I am.
I know you.
I want to drain and a fire
Paul Robert.
screen
Did
now.
you meet Paul Roberts?
Yeah,
I already asked
for
him.
his wife.
I already asked him for
For
his
his
wife.
wife.
For his wife.
Exactly.
You know what? Go ahead and call her. I want to hear her say yes. Okay, but Peter,
Yeah.
you know, how long you've been working in this as far as water jet or actually kind of like decorative elements? How long you've been in this business?
Since '94, probably.
Since
Ever since
94?
I left school. Yeah.
Okay, and you kind of teed me off perfectly, right? So you share an alma mater with my wife, who is
Oh.
the director of admissions at the Graduate School of Education at Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
She got her undergrad at Long Beach. She got her master's degree at Long Beach. She worked at Long Beach. She pretty much, I think
Never leaving.
she's never leaving.
She's still there.
Which is
She's
okay
still
with me.
there.
That's fine. You know, she's got a great health plan and a pension plan. But so go 49ers, okay? But or go Beach actually.
Yeah.
Right. But you went to school
Right.
not to work with metal. You went to school for.
Basically art courses.
Okay. So what made you first of all go down that path? Like, I mean, that's pretty. Were you artistic always?
Always, yeah.
Okay.
Always creating stuff, always drawing, always making stuff. You know, anything that I can put my hands around and create something, whether it was wires or copper or sheeting or whatever I can find.
What's your earliest memory of doing something like that? Like creating...
3.
Yeah, kindergarten.
I don't want to know
probably.
what you created at 3.
Yeah.
Bombs.
Bad. Okay, but how old were you?
Probably
thinking?
kindergarten. I remember my
Kindergarten?
earliest drawings that I made, and the teachers thought it was great, and my parents came in, and that's what they talked about to them about.
And was that? I mean, for you to basically then pursue that as a degree, did you get your undergrad in art
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's of arts in
at
art.
Long Beach?
Yeah, studio art.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so, what medium did you like or lean towards?
I never leaned towards anything. I liked all of it.
Just in general?
I went through illustration. I went through. I even took courses on how to make paint and how to make oils and varnishes. So I did design work.
That's hardcore. You got to make your own paint.
Yeah,
boy.
you make your own paint.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, back then there was no computer, so you didn't learn how to do CAD
Not
programming.
not
yet.
necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and so
Very hands-on.
a lot of studio art. You know, we had great teachers who brought us to other studio art, other artists to check out their studios and stuff. So
So you weren't just executing in the medium; you were also hands-on
Yeah.
in the elements of the medium.
very much
different
so.
mediums.
Very much so. Yeah, yeah. Framing and how to present an art piece. We did gallery work, so where we had to prepare the gallery for the artwork and then be involved in presenting the work. You know, we didn't do a lot of business, but a lot of artwork was.
That's sadly one of the things
That's
is
missing.
in
Yeah.
creative pursuits
sure is, yeah.
academically.
Yeah.
We don't prepare people for that aspect of it,
No.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then you went on to do a master's degree.
No, I never went for
Oh,
a
you never
master's
did?
degree.
Okay.
No, because at that point I had to make a choice. Do I continue to go to school and basically
Endlessly.
endlessly. I took print courses. I didn't give a lecture, but I gave presentations on how to print, offset printing, lithography printing, silk screening. So I basically did everything, ceramics.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, so do I just continue to do this,
Yeah.
which is basically having fun now,
Right.
Yeah.
Arts and
or do I
crafts.
go out and make a living?
And why can't the two coexist?
Because
That's hard. That's hard.
You really can't. You really can't. You have to get your business going,
Uh-huh.
learn the business, because I didn't know the business.
I have a perfect reason why I'm setting it up like this.
Yeah. Okay. We'll find out. and then as soon as I started my own business, that's when I got creative and sold that. So I remember my first things that I created were candelabras, and I would sell them to the corner store in Long Beach that sold things for artists. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's going to sell. That people like those things. So I created soap dishes and mirrors, and then I went into gates and doors and stairwells.
How did you get into water jet? Because that seems to be a technical engineering skill.
Completely out of the norm of what I would normally do. Yeah.
So what took you down that
That's a
path?
good story.
Well, that's 8 or 10 years later now, and so computers are in the picture now. I've learned how to use a computer. I learned how to do CAD drawings, and then so a lot of our customers are requiring not your regular railing, not your regular gate designs. They wanted
Custom.
themed elements,
Yeah.
eagles,
Grapes.
I don't know,
Grapes are big. I know.
dinosaurs,
Yeah, right.
dolphins, because we were by the coast. We were in Long Beach or Huntington Beach.
Yeah. A lot of dolphins.
Yeah, and so we had to blacksmith all that stuff. So I had to learn how to blacksmith. I learned that outside of
Wow.
school. Okay, and so
Where do you go to learn how to be a blacksmith?
You
Where
just-
the
you just
the,
learn it.
the
You
learn-
hills
you-
of Kentucky
you-
or something?
No,
or-
you apprentice.
but
But
not
those
with me.
those
Yeah,
don't exist
and
anymore.
so there was no
Yeah.
YouTube channel, so you couldn't see how to be a
Right.
blacksmith.
So how did you learn? Just hands-on?
Just put something in the forge, and you had to make your forge.
Uh-huh.
So
Do you ever watch that Forged in Fire show? I
Great
love watching
show.
that show where these
Make
guys
the knives and whatnot.
making
Oh my
knives
gosh.
and stuff out of
I try
forging.
never to be influenced by other artists or what people are doing.
Yeah, but just it just opened my eyes that there's still
did you hear that?
Yeah.
He's still an artist.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to be influenced by any other artists. I'm doing my own thing. I'm learning. The reason why I'm asking this, Peter, is because part of the story
Yeah,
that I did not get, okay, from looking at your stuff,
right.
and that I think has not only smart business differentiator value, but is actually very much truthful to what you are doing right now is a pursuit of passion. Now, it may be translating in multiple mediums, of which this happens to be drains or stuff that is decorative of this nature.
Right, yeah.
But I think there's a part of you that you held on to, good for you, because a lot of people sometimes get to the point of discouragement, especially if they're coming down the liberal arts or path,
Yeah.
to
Amen.
to sell
Give
that
up,
out,
yeah.
to give up on that, right?
No,
and
no.
not pursue it. And
Don't sell out to the man.
Well,
Well, it's not bad to make money.
No. There's nothing wrong
know,
with that at all.
no.
To marry the two,
Yeah.
To find a way to be
follow
true
something
to a
that is
creative
true
vision.
to yourself and
Right,
find your
right.
own way to
Yeah.
make that pencil out.
Yeah, what I've always said, and my philosophy has always been, I'll make what I like, and if I love it, you're gonna love it. Simple as that.
Which is what I did with this podcast studio. I started off in radio in college, and I read the morning announcements in high school. I've always loved talking. I've always loved radio and sound. And I worked as a real DJ for a number of years until that industry changed, and they started robotizing it, turning into robotics and stuff here. And I left it for a long time, and it wasn't until my late 50s when I was forced to find a new career that I went back to my roots and said, maybe through this new medium of podcasting or internet radio or live podcasting, I'll rediscover my passion for the spoken conversation and radio and what.
Yeah, but you're looking at it back from where you are today to the 5 years ago.
Right.
And you're formalizing what experience you just had.
Right.
When you 5 years ago decided to go down a path, you kind of went down a path, but not really knowing what the outcome was going to be.
No,
And you had certain sort of loosely maybe, but here.
And I only went down the path because I was pushed down the
And-
path.
and-
I got to come up with something here.
Right.
You know.
It was like, you're driving me nuts. Get out of the house.
Yeah, my previous business had flopped, and I'm suddenly trying
Pretty
to figure out
much,
something
like,
to
you
do.
know,
Yeah.
okay, I'm tired of seeing you. I don't usually see that much. You don't need to leave.
Yeah.
But the reason, gentlemen, why I'm bringing this up, and I think even in Robert's case, it's somewhat similar, but probably from the sales aspect of it, is that this, and I include myself in this conversation, right? We're talking about drains, and people are like, well, what do you mean you're going to talk about drains for an hour? No. We're not talking about drains. We're talking about having the courage to trust yourself and your own guiding voice enough to pursue, even at times what seemingly is against all odds, what society tells you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Upside
your
down,
own,
in the dirt.
Pursue your own inner voice. And if you are fortunate enough, and there's risks, I'm not saying that there isn't, but if you're fortunate enough to break through to the point where your pursuit of passion can actually at least provide for you reward, both spiritual, soulful, and financial,
You're going to be living in it. Yeah.
you are never
You
going
are.
to work a day in your life. You
Right.
are going to basically pursuing your passion,
Yeah.
and that is endless. I'm not looking to 65 to retire.
Yeah.
Don't have that
It's
stuff.
endless,
And
endless.
you're constantly expanding.
Yeah.
You're constantly challenging yourself.
Yeah.
You're constantly taking risks, and there is no better feeling in the world than to do that. And if you're fortunate enough to surround yourself by some people or have a network of people that support you in that,
Yeah.
rather than try to make you kind of adhere to a conventional path,
And it's hard to do
it's very hard. It
because
is-
you have
it
to
is.
convince them of your creative energy and your creative passion. It's hard to do that.
And there's no faking that. I mean,
No.
there's no faking that. You
And what's
either-
even
either
harder
it's
is you
authentic or
did it
not.
in a field that didn't exist.
Didn't
There
exist,
was no creative drains.
Right.
There was no podcast studio when I started this place.
And
here,
that's why I wanted to bring it up, right?
Yeah.
Because both of you, it is often that we don't see that in people that are creative. We admire the heck out of rock stars.
Yeah.
We admire the heck out of people that
Movie
that
makers
think
or-
outside the box, that are disruptors. I mean, we just lost Stephen Hawking. The disruptors in thinking of certain things. I mean, you want to talk about something as mundane as physics? I mean, how old is that medium, right?
Yeah.
And for somebody to come in and just turn it on its head,
Right.
you know, we as a society appreciate that. Not maverick, but that person that's willing to follow their own voice.
Yeah.
But then at the same token, out of fear of failure, we try to make everybody conform to what is the safe path.
Right.
That person who's leading that path or creating that path cannot listen to negative criticism.
Yes.
And it's going to come.
It's always there.
It's always going to be
You
there.
can't look at it. You can't watch the news.
Right.
You can't look at. You can't.
So you
listen.
weren't offended when I laughed, literally, openly laughed when you walked in. I said, "Drains? Who the hell
Oh,
is this?"
no.
'cause I-
It's
'cause I know-
ironic-
because I know you're going to buy one.
If his wife is okay with it. But ironically, Paul, stand in Peter's shoes and walk in and say podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And not only podcast, live podcast.
Yeah, live radio,
Okay, out of a radio station that's an 8x10 room.
Yeah. right.
Okay, and how many shows do you have today?
We have almost 30, 26,
that's
27
awesome. That's
shows.
amazing.
Wow.
that operate out of this room.
Yeah,
Right.
That
So
pay us obviously to
again-
come in and like Rod does, a producer show and stream it and turn it into a podcast and help push it out and help develop an audience for it. And then we try and sell commercials around it like a real radio station.
The Raad Life, we tongue-in-cheek say is a journey of aging.
Right.
Okay. In this case, you have two examples. Whoever's listening and watching, you have 2 examples, 3 examples, 4 examples of a personal journey of aging.
Yes.
Okay, and aging not in terms of just years, but in terms of growth and expansion of your own self. Right, taking risks, facing adversity, being shut down, all this stuff, and all through it, if you are lucky, and I'm here to tell you, whenever you hear somebody trying to rob you from your own story, the uniqueness of your own story, avoid it.
They're the wrong person to be
Right?
with.
But what's worse is when you rob yourself of the uniqueness
Yes,
of your
yeah,
own
I
story.
think too
and
many
that
of us do
happens
that.
a lot.
Yeah.
And so take courage in the examples that you have in front of you today, that in something as mundane as a drain, there's a personal journey of self-expression, okay, in a field and a medium of creativity, which in general society looks at as being this thing I don't understand exactly, and so therefore I am afraid of it, and maybe you should be better off doing something more
Think
more
of
conventional.
all the students right now.
Podcasting, same thing.
Yes, think of
sales is another thing. I mean,
Oh.
talk about a skill
Yeah.
that you either inherently have and cultivate and develop, or you basically end up being, especially in today's age and with millennials. I mean, man, people can smell disingenuous and hard sell a mile
they don't
away.
want to
Immediately.
sell
Yeah.
anymore.
You know,
They
You
don't
got,
want
you
the
got to
sales.
come with the right energy. I think as long as you're authentic and you can provide that service for somebody that they're trying to fix something.
right?
So
what more do
what
you need?
attracted you? We heard history. What brought you into the picture?
I'm 29.
Right.
I've been doing sales for roughly 10 years. So
Just looking for a job and answered an ad or met him or whatever. Yeah.
little
That's
basically
yeah.
it. But there's like, okay, so I actually worked across the street at the Nordstrom, where we're at here, right?
Oh, you did.
Yeah. My father was going through his last stages of Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
and he came to me and he basically told me, don't worry about me because I'm going to be fine, and go out there and find a job. And
How old were you, Robert, when you were dealing with this with your dad?
24, 25.
Yeah,
Not
so
that long
that's-
ago,
that's a-
okay,
that-
yeah.
Not
but
too
that-
long
but
ago.
that's a hard thing for a
Oh,
young
it's
man
extremely
to be dealing with. Yeah.
it's extremely tough to see, basically who you looked at as your superhero go through this debilitating disease that, at the end of it is basically not the person that you
And
grew up
I'm
around.
assuming your father was diagnosed early, like early onset, like young. Was he young?
No, unfortunately within a year and a half.
Wow.
It just happened super fast.
And as Nancy Reagan said about Ronald Reagan, she said it was hard. She said it was like he died, but we hadn't buried him.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly. It's a ghost it's a shell of the person that you knew walking around the house.
Right.
And
A
even
ghost.
if they could walk, because
Right.
at some point he was unable to move himself around, and I basically took time away from work and ate through my savings to hang out at home with my dad. And the moment he told me that same day, I get a phone call. Hey, can you come in for an interview? And I tell Peter this story all the time. I was offered a job literally a half a block away from him to go and do vitamin sales, right? So basically like your proteins, your vitamins and all that kind of stuff. I walk out of the interview.
Which is a hot established
yes,
market.
it was hot at the moment.
We might laugh about, but there's a big market for vitamins and supplements
Yes,
and all that, and
massive.
it's
And
everybody wants to feel every baby
Come to
boomer.
California, get into vitamins
Yeah.
and supplements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
so
right.
30
As
minutes.
opposed to drains, that I don't know if there's 2 people who want to buy a drain.
There's plenty of people for that one though.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah,
but,
for the vitamins.
So you got a call, come in for an interview for vitamins.
Yeah, so I walk out and I'm excited. I'm thinking, okay,
You
this
tried
is
the
gonna,
vitamins. You didn't care for
they were
them.
delicious. I was hooked.
okay.
I was ready to do it.
I was trying to line you up with the drain thing. So you were basically
Okay, yeah,
expressing
I was-
yourself, and it didn't agree with your stomach, and you were looking at the
No,
drain.
it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
right.
okay, yeah.
No.
So 30 minutes later, I get a phone call and it's Peter, and he says, "Hey, can you come in?" And I said, "Sure thing."
That's fascinating. So how did you know to call him, Peter?
I submitted my.
You submit. It was
Just an ad.
just like a blind submittal for a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And this was to the day that the day after your dad basically had told you to go.
Within a week, within 3-4 days, I think is what happened.
Fascinating how life unfolds as
Yeah.
well.
It's
And
amazing.
I kid you not, I walk in and there's just this giant
machine.
No, it's like this wall of silver things because at the time, all the drains were literally on a wall like this. And I walk in my head, I've been doing sales. It's like I know what a hot product is and I know where the market should go with it. And I'm just kind of dumbfounded at the fact that, like, we're all here, the shower drains. I laughed. You know,
What
like
did
I
what
did.
did you sell at Nordstrom, by the way?
men's clothing.
Men's clothing, which is a stone's throw away from the jewelry
The
department.
whole other department. And this is jewelry for your shower, so kindly, you know?
I'm setting you up for the shower.
And I walked in and we had the interview, and probably the next day I was in there. And, you know, we were talking about this on the way here. When I first got there, we were maybe selling a drain a day. And we were excited when we'd sell 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And
Somebody bought one.
Exactly. We were cheering and high-fiving and the whole nine. And now it's a situation where, you know, we've got hotels calling us. We have architects that want to do branding. We've got home builders and all the people in the residential sector that are
Vacation spots.
yeah, that are coming and calling us. And we've taken, you know, as we mentioned, this basic passion that Peter started with, and we've grown it to a point where we're able to sustain ourselves and, you know, have an operation and a real business where we can hire people and do things and explore the market. And
So do you want to look at all those? I mean, I know you're still a small company, but eventually you want to have a residential division where you're focusing on direct-to-consumer. People are just buying this. Builders
yes,
for bigger tract homes. And then to Rad's point, the hospitality industry.
That's right.
seems
Well, I'll give you a perfect
huge
example of
thing.
another mundane product that would be perfect expansion into
Okay.
their area, and especially with their.
Do we want to
technology
patent this first, or do
No,
we
no,
want to
no,
we
no,
want to
no,
negotiate
no,
a deal
no,
on this
no,
first?
No. I believe in reciprocation. It'll come back.
Okay.
You put it out there, it'll come back. Air conditioning grills.
We just got
we just started those.
we
Oh
just landed
my
a hotel job for that.
God.
Air conditioning grills.
I have the
But it doesn't-
ugliest because
There's a few out there that are more decorative, but
Yeah, man.
very old school.
Yeah.
Not really.
And it doesn't just stop at air conditioning grills. We have a product, and I know it's going to tie into what you call your show here, but we have a product called Raad knobs, which are
Rad knobs.
yeah,
See?
Yes.
cabinet hardware with our designs in them.
Rad.
So if I
knobs.
do a selection, if I do a collection for you, I have a nice little R that could go on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And it could be
cool,
R,
really?
Rad with 2 A's.
Yeah,
I like that.
Rad with 2 A's is what I have.
Yeah, that's literally what it says is RAAD.
You're
It's so
kidding
funny.
me.
No, again, fate.
Where's my royalty check?
You know, have you ever thought of having designer lines like Target does all the
I've
way up
actually
to the
been,
big
I've
thing?
actually been approached by a company that
design
does
lines and stuff?
massage tables to do a line.
Massage
and,
tables,
and,
huh?
and again, you're talking about 20 years of experience and credibility in this, both the high-end hospitality industry as well as, I mean, I sat in a room with 290 people and I held a panel with 5 people, right, in front of that on a stage that I designed. And we're doing it again next year. And so it's not very far-fetched because what it is, the name of the game is you leverage brand with brand.
Yep.
Right. My wife, when we redid our kitchen
So definitely
and our
we
bathrooms,
should definitely talk.
Yeah.
would have. We're going to buy one of these. I'm in. Of course, I get a friends and family
Do I
discount.
get
but
to pick
right.
your pattern?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. Your wife's going to pick your pattern.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'll just pick it and give it to her because it's really what I want. You nailed it. It's what I want. She wanted custom knobs, and we couldn't find any place to do all the little knobs on all our cabinets. So we just looked endlessly at Home Depot and all those things, and picked out something, and it was okay, but it's not really what she wanted. And I
Ours
thought,
aren't
It didn't fill your heart. It
didn't fill
your heart.
my heart. Yeah. And in fact, we never ever look at them or react to those or think about them. Like the little kick I get out of the doorbell every day. It's just it's this. It's a little. I must have used a water jet. It's a little piece of metal that surrounds the little doorknob, and it's that little metal plate that I bought. I think it's a dolphin or something or whatever.
Of course it is.
And then there's a button in the middle where his belly button would be, I guess, or something.
Yeah, in our house, what we used to do is every season, let's say it was Christmas, we would have a Christmas theme on the doorbell, which I would make. For Halloween, we'd have cats and spider webs
Oh
and stuff.
my God, she'd love
And
that.
so we changed it every so often.
She would love that.
She would. I wouldn't care about it. It means nothing to me.
But let me go back to like what we're talking about here: drains and handles, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so for people who are looking at this, there's some things that you may not realize. That drain has to do a few other things other than look pretty. It has to be something that withstands all that water exposure.
Yeah.
It's something that
Weight,
has to be
won't bend.
cleanable.
Yeah.
In most cases, with people that really don't care what they're putting, like as far as abrasive, like you, bring the little leather chamois and do it. No. They're putting friggin' whatever, like sponge and whatever they have, and they may have just wiped the toilet with that sponge. I mean,
I also pee a lot in the toilet in the shower there.
so there's a need for it. There's a need for it to withstand Irish urine. Okay. Acidic Irish urine. But the point is that there's more to it than just the decorative. There's also the opening size. There's also the fact that you may have people in that shower that may lose some hair and the ability to clean and that thing.
I've lost all my hair. Really.
Right. So no, you haven't. No. So the thing about it is, and then let's go to the door handles. Those door handles, especially for people that maybe are buying this that have the discretionary income to spend on this, there needs to be tactile aspects to it. If it's applied in a commercial setting, there has to be certain minimums for handicap accessibility code requirements. There has to be pull and weight, on that door. So there's more to it than just a decorative thing. And I want to make sure that you guys get the credit for that, because it's not just I'm cutting a piece of thing in my shop in the garage. There's a lot more to it in order to come up with the kind of quality product that these guys do.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's not junk. It looks like good stuff here.
Could have the right material, the right opening, like you said, the right size opening, the right drainage for, let's say, the shower drain. If you're talking about cabinet hardware, you could have the right amount of space between the cabinet and the back of the knob.
Right.
If you want to put your fingers behind it, or
So what are you? So you're fooling around with drains, and this is working for you. You're making
Fooling
a living
around with drains.
Yeah, well, you've come up. You've taken a thing that nobody ever thought of and turned it into a decorative piece.
Yeah.
And found a market that nobody knew existed, just as we tried to do with podcasting.
Peter, you know what we need to get for Paul?
What's that?
Look at his setup with the mic.
Oh,
See that little mouthpiece that he has on there?
Yeah.
Pop filter. They're called pop filters.
I think we need to get him a pop filter that's basically maybe he's got his
Initials
initials on it
it.
or
It
something.
has to be
We could definitely do
Yeah,
that.
we
You
could
think
do
so?
that.
Because all it does is it
And
gets
then, Paul, what you do is
the
you set
puffs
that
of air
you set that up with the wall that says OC Talk Radio,
yeah.
and then you take a picture of your mic and you with that custom thing with the OC Talk Radio, and then you post it on social media and you tag them.
Wow. Well, you were getting to where I was going with
But
this.
I'm pointing that out. There's your cross branding.
What other
OC Talk Radio in the background?
Yeah.
Your
whatever
logo
decorative
Cross branding is very beneficial to both
Huge.
parties, to all parties.
Yeah.
leveraging one brand
Yeah.
over the other
Yeah.
is the smart way to go.
Yeah.
What you have to be careful with is to make sure that the people that you are associating with and you're leveraging your brand with
Match.
have the same level of credibility and authenticity,
Right.
because otherwise that's a very slippery slope
Yeah.
and you're gone.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So, what other fields? What other little fun knickknacks? What other fun overseen product? You talked about doorknobs.
Yeah.
That's one. You talked about shower drain. Have you ever done a doorbell? The little plates that go around the doorbell.
We have just personally to use them, but
I'm
not,
telling you, that's a market
yeah.
that I can't go to Home Depot and get too many decorative things to put on my doorknob. When this guy walked up and had a whole assortment of them, I thought I'll buy one.
We also do kitchen sink drains to stop knives and silverware from falling into the garbage disposal.
Messing around with the light switch.
Light switches.
Light switches. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, we got into the linear trench drains as well.
Linear. What's a linear trench drain?
Long strips.
The stuff that we use in aging in place modifications for showers. Remember, I've talked about where you have a smaller bathroom, you have a tub in it. That tub is usually about, let's say, 24 to 30 inches across, maybe. And so that's building off the back wall. So let's say your bathroom is 10 feet and you got a tub that's 3 feet, basically, for all intents and purposes, away from the back wall.
Yeah.
That goes up about 18 inches off the floor. Okay, if you take that tub out and you turn that bathroom, in the course of upgrading your bathroom, and this is usually like a downstairs. Let's say it's a downstairs bathroom. Right. In fact, if you have a downstairs powder that has room in it, you could add that element into it if it doesn't exist, like the shower component.
Yeah.
What you do is you redo your floor. You run your material all the way into the back wall. You eliminate your tub, and you basically put in a shower that is zero entry shower. That slopes to a trench drain that is wide enough to handle the flow of water, because a small round drain is not really efficient for that kind of installation. You put it towards the corner, you slope to it, And now you have a bathroom that visually looks 3 feet bigger, because you don't have an element that's obstructing your view where the floor
tub,
and
yeah.
the floor goes all the way in.
It's a flat floor from
It's
seamless.
yeah,
you might have to do a little threshold if you can't get the slope you need,
Yeah.
whatever. But the idea is that this is one of those modifications. So that requires a different kind of drain.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your connection point is still a single 3-inch drain,
3-inch
Pipe,
drain.
right.
you need the trough to collect the excess water, because you don't. In a typical situation with a tub, you've got the vessel of the tub holding the water and giving it a chance to channel to the drain.
Right.
In the case of a shower pan, you have 4 sides that are coming to a point that are sloping away.
Right.
When you don't have the benefit of having a dam or a higher starting point, because you don't want somebody to trip, or
Right.
you want to expand the look of your shower,
Or access for a wheelchair.
or access for a
Right,
wheelchair,
right.
you need to have a bigger holding somehow to channel to the water.
It
you
makes
don't-
so
you-
much
and-
sense to me. In my parents' house, we talked about.
So
a lot,
that's
but
what they call a linear drain.
I inherited a house out in Sun City. You know, all these older people out there. Someday I maybe will live out there, but for right now I just rent it out. And one of the things that shocked me, this is Sun City out in Palm Desert, all for people over 55 and even older. None of the showers there are zero, whatever you call it,
A curbless entry.
curbless entry. My mother, as she got older and had Parkinson's disease the latter part of her life, was mostly in a wheelchair, and my dad was trying to struggle with how do we take the normal shower with the pan, the pan, is that what it's called?
Yeah, the pan.
It's 2 or 3 inch. He's got to step over to get into the shower.
Yeah.
That 2 or 3 inches was a mountain to my mother.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he couldn't get her in there, and so he wanted to wheel her in there and couldn't do it. And then they never figured out, you know, she died. But for the last couple of years of her life, it was miserable trying to bathe her. So why wouldn't every
Well, and that's visually
Shower out there.
Visually now, you know, we're talking about this drain and the size of this cover, right? But if you start talking about a linear drain, you're talking about this times minimum of 5, maybe 4 or 5. It's a much bigger visual element that is
Yes.
now in
Yes.
there,
It really is.
and you've really dressed up and upgraded your bathroom. So again, it's unavoidable.
right?
You know, it's like a gutter. What do I put on
It
there?
really is like a gutter.
Yeah,
Like
what
a
do
gutter,
I?
right.
It's
Yeah.
what they call them, gutter drains. It really is more visible. So do you just address it with? I mean, I'll tell you, and I'll give you an example. Like these gentlemen here, they're doing it with this format. There's some that are out there on the market where people are so particular. I don't particularly care for these because I think there's a bit of an issue with how much water is now going to go in. But you could have the same material that you're putting in the floor, that tile.
Oh, the tile in drains.
You have a drain that has a tile in
They
drain.
don't actually work.
They don't really work,
No.
but basically what you have now is a very thin slit,
Yeah.
and there's like a little channel that you
Yeah.
can put in the same tile in there
Yeah.
to try to hide it.
Yeah.
So that never really works well. That's
Yeah.
going to
No.
back up on you,
Yes.
whatever. So you still now have an opening that leads to a drain that is now maybe even the width of that 30 inches of the shower against the wall, and it's high visibility. So what do you do with that?
You call designer drains.
You call designer drains. At designerdrains.com.
Give us the because we gotta go. So give us
888-957-3944. Operators are
standing by. All right, give us the website, all the stuff, and we'll wrap up.
I just did. Robert, when did you do it?
All right. Call us in if you'd like. It's 888-957-3944, or the website is www.designerdrains.com.
Social
Wow.
media
Custom drains, designer drains, linear drains.
A world
So-
of drains
social
that
media.
you
Where
need to know
can they
research.
find you on social media?
If you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/designerdrains.
Of course.
On Twitter, twitter.com/designerdrains. And on Instagram, it's designer_drains.
So look into that, and people don't take your drains lightly. I mean, just in general, if you got the wrong size of drain and you're putting too much water in it, it's going to back up on you. If you're in a commercial situation, if you're a spa, if you're a restaurant,
It's a great branding
you
opportunity.
know exactly what the problem is. And a lot of these restaurants that are open floor plan that don't basically have tiles or they have concrete, you usually have, if you're smart, you've put in some drains in the actual dining area
Yes.
to hose down and wash, depending on what kind of food you serve. So if you've got those drains right now, what sits on there is something that says, I don't know, city of whatever. No, I'm kidding. That's an outside drain. But it basically is a very generic thing.
Yes.
So again, if you spend all this time and money branding and whatever, if you have something that's drain related, that in most cases you do. In the bathrooms, in most bathrooms, you have to put a drain in commercial settings now, in the floor, according to code. And so that's an opportunity. And rather than it just says, I don't know, water district or SD and G and E or whatever, kind of like a utilities-looking thing, you can actually impact it with a little bit more additional branding.
A little
That's
detail.
right.
So, gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
It was very enjoyable, actually, and thanks for sharing that. It just shows you how you can pursue a passion and turn it into something that is a sustainable pursuit on everything. I mean, you don't just get rewarded financially from this, you also get to still express yourself artistically.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't have to work ever.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but if you find something that you enjoy and you make that your career path, regardless of what naysayers will tell you, you will never work a day in your life.
Never. Or retire.
Or retire.
Okay, just
and
keep
who the
doing
heck
it.
wants to retire?
Yeah.
On that note, we'll wrap it up. All
Thank you,
right.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Rad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.
Welcome to SBRE Capital Matters, the only show focused on the small balance real estate community, with your host, Matt Burke.
Good morning. Welcome to SBRE Capital Matters. We're here for another show this week. I've got an exciting guest. Looking forward to having a nice conversation and hopefully bringing some value to all people out there in the small balance real estate community. As a quick reminder, we do this show to provide value to people who are participating in what we call small balance real estate. It's really entrepreneurs who make their living by doing real estate deals that require them to raise money from investors on an ongoing basis. And on the other side of the equation, those high net worth, accredited, and qualified purchasers that like to actively invest in this alternative investment space. And that's really our target audience and people that we're trying to help. So I'm CEO of Fairway America. I'm Chief Investment Officer of a couple of funds that we run and have a variety of services that we provide to both entrepreneurs and investors to really help them in this space. So our goal is to bring interesting folks that are doing exciting things in the space to come in and talk to us about what they're doing and how they are bringing value to the space. And with that in mind, today I've got a guest that I know quite well. His name is Lance Peterson. And Lance and I have known each other going on, Lance, probably 13, 14 years now.
Yeah.
We met, like many of the people I've been with in Entrepreneurs Organization, and gotten to know each other well. And so welcome, Lance.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So tell us what you've been up to lately. I know you're working on some exciting things, and give the audience a little background on what you're doing these days.
Yeah, my background, kind of going way back when I was in my early 20s, was ran an IT services firm, basically kind of the outsourced IT for small to medium-sized businesses. And then I came on board here at Fairway in 2008 and really kind of manned the back office. But that kind of eventually led to us to launching a fund administration firm for small balance real estate entrepreneurs. And one of the things we always saw that was kind of missing was the technology piece in this space was really kind of antiquated. And after a valiant attempt to try to find some better tech tools to help us administer funds for our clients, we really kind of came up short. Most of the stuff was mainly geared toward hedge funds and private equity funds, and it just didn't really fit the bill. And so we ended up last August launching our own technology firm, Fiducia Labs, and we were able to really land a real world-class chief technology officer, Dan Warner. And so I guess something we probably never thought we were going to get into, being on the investment side of the business, but here we are. We're running a tech firm and have a new investment management platform for alternative investments called Marco.
Really cool. So I understand you've experienced a little bit of an unexpected trend in the process of launching Marco. Can tell us what you've seen out there in the small balance real estate community on that front.
Yeah, when we started this, the whole cloud-based software, software as a service is, real sexy, and a lot of guys who are running startups are looking for that sort of model. You build the software once and you sell it, thousands of times is the idea. And the one piece of it was to try to stay away from running a services business, but this lingering thing that we had seen back when we were running our own funds, or when I was deeply involved in the back office of our own funds, was these changes in the banking environment. We banked with one of the largest banks in the United States, and we really started seeing them kind of start putting the screws to us as it pertained to just all sorts of random things, like testing to see whether we were a money services broker, or I just get these random phone calls to have these discussions about all these kind of esoteric things, which of course, as an entrepreneur, those are frustrating conversations because I don't really understand what their angle is. And the bad news was that the relationship manager that on the other side of the phone didn't really know, what the deal was either. And needless to say, we always kind of felt like, hey, what's the, we're your clients, we're not criminals. And that was what, 2011, 2012. And since then now, we've gotten upwards of, 70, 80, 90 entities that we support through our fund administration firm, Redwood Real Estate. We've seen more and more and more cases of our clients having issues just opening bank accounts. And I thought, that was kind of the canary in the coal mine. Was, back in the day, you could just walk into the bank and say you want to open a bank account, and you'd walk out that day with a $500 deposit being made, and away you go. And here we're having clients that's taking upwards of 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks to just open a bank account. And so the more and more we dug into this, we started to realize that there were some other trends that were taking place that were really driving this behavior at the banks. And a lot of it was going back to 2001 was the Patriot Act, after the 9/11, and really trying to stop the inflows of laundering money to terrorist organizations. But that never really took hold in earnest. And I think that after the Great Recession, the banks were just in such a state of disarray that things weren't really happening. But behind the scenes, as I've later kind of found out, is that the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, it's called FinCEN, they're kind of a part of the U.S. Treasury Department. They've been committed to try to figure out how to stem the tide of the money laundering activity for terrorist organizations, and just for the drug trade and even tax evasion. They've been trying to figure out how to stop this. And so what you've had here now is our economy's recovered. At the same time, these cryptocurrencies have kind of sprouted up, and really, which make them all super nervous. And so there's just been a whole slew of things taking place that have caused the regulators to really start to come down on these financial institutions.
So how have you seen that flow down to the small balance real estate folks and that you're dealing with?
Most recently, what we've seen is, a client, going and opening a bank account with one of the large institutions, and then have, only to 3 weeks later have them show up and ask them if they've got an anti-money laundering program. Of course, they didn't say anti-money laundering, they just said AML program. And the client said, "What's AML?" And the bank said, "Well, that's all I needed to know. Because if you don't know what AML is, you probably don't have one." And once all these things have been kind of sprouting up, and so it's like, that's really odd. Now they all of a sudden call up and say, "Our bank kicked us out." And I'd heard other things, which I could probably share a little bit later.
So what do you attribute some of that to? I mean, like, why are the banks so upset with some of the bank accounts, and particularly in the small balance real estate space?
Yeah, I think where it comes from specifically is that it's kind of going back a little ways, but it's these Panama Papers. This journalist, this whistleblower, basically uncovered all these documents that they shared with a journalist in Germany that proved unequivocally that many of these LLCs and entities, or these shell companies, are being used to essentially launder money and that sort of thing. And so now it was kind of out in the open. And So I think that, as all things in the bureaucracy, they just take time to kind of take hold. And of recent, with this particular client, they happen to be located in an area near New York City, where a lot of Chinese nationals have been, they're high-end cash buyers of this, Manhattan real estate, which has really thrown the whole Manhattan real estate market into a complete disarray because prices are just completely out of whack and that sort of thing. But nonetheless, the origins of the money are kind of unknown, and so really they're in an area where they've really cramped down and made sure that, hey, we got to know that the money that's going into these entities, and if you can't demonstrate that you've done the diligence on your client, then we just can't bank with. They call it debanking. So they're basically saying we just can't take the risk. Another thing that's happened is that I think that all these financial institutions have a compliance officer, right? That's at the highest levels, and they're responsible for all these things. Well, it was just earlier this year, the chief compliance officer of MoneyGram was essentially FinCEN levied a civil money penalty against him for $1 million.
Against him
personally.
Wow.
And so that sent a shockwave through all of these compliance officers at all these financial institutions that said, hey, it's no longer where, the institution gets their hand slapped, but now all of a sudden they're getting their hand slapped. And, it's really causing them to kind of lock down. And when you add that up with FinCEN's recent ruling that goes fully into effect in May of 2018, which is upcoming, they've given financial institutions 2 years to get ready for this, but it's essentially enhanced customer due diligence on these accounts, which means instead of them just requiring the financial institutions to conduct due diligence when the account's open, they're requiring them to conduct due diligence on the beneficiaries on an ongoing basis. So they've got to monitor these after the fact. And so a lot of compliance officers, they're just not geared up for that. And
so you're talking about a banking institution, a Wells Fargo, a Bank of America, or a regional bank, or whoever, a FDIC-insured banking institution, having requirements imposed upon them that flow downhill to the small balance real estate entrepreneur who's running a fund or a syndication where they've formed a Reg D fund or an LLC, right? And they're taking money in from investors, either individually or from another LLC in many cases, and depositing that money into that institution.
That's exactly right.
And they don't, and so what you're seeing happening is that they're not excited about doing that. Is that what I'm understanding? The bank is not, doesn't want to do it because, or wants to have compliant, wants to know that the money is not coming from certain
that's right
sources that it shouldn't be coming from,
that's
namely right. Either drug runners or
tax evaders
or terrorists.
36 million people could be paying.
Comply with various laws that have come out. Wow, that's pretty interesting. So let's take a quick break here, and then we're going to get a little bit more into some specifics on the second half of the show. So let's take a quick break. Thanks for listening to SBRE Capital Matters.
High net worth investors are increasingly demanding that alternative investment asset managers of all kinds, hedge fund, private equity, and real estate managers alike, provide them with access to reporting and information on par to the public markets. They want something that is easy and transparent. The innovative team at Fiducia Labs has developed such a response, the next generation of trust tools, the desired solution. Introducing Marco, the alternative investment platform. Marco has been specifically designed to streamline the entire investment process from start to finish and all points in between. An elegant, intuitive interface that is efficient, effective, and removes the barriers to adopt. It enables Marco to give you all your investors the edge to make investing and managing alts easy and transparent. To learn more about Marco, please visit www.getmarco.com. Marco, the alternative investment platform. The small balance real estate community is growing. Comprised of serious real estate entrepreneurs and savvy high net worth investors, the shared abundance mindset is a bond. SBREfunds.com is where the SBRE community gathers to grow their knowledge and their portfolios. If you are looking for SBRE investment opportunities, educational content across the spectrum of SBRE-focused topics, and an online resource exclusively servicing the flourishing SBRE community, then SBREfunds.com welcomes you.
Welcome back. We're here with Lance Peterson, CEO of Fiducia Labs, producers of Marco Software. And so, Lance, let's get down to some practical application of all the things that we're talking about here. Can you give us some context or share maybe a story or two about specific SBRE entrepreneurs that may be running into this kind of a problem, and perhaps even, if you can, on the investor side of the equation, you know, what some of their experiences might be with the frustration of all this, and maybe some people who've been debanked or have had this specific problem. So maybe give us some specifics.
Yeah, so one of our clients, you know, we were in the process of getting him all set up with our new tool, Marco, and we were talking about, you know, okay, wire instructions and get the banks and all sort of stuff. And then he began to share, he's like, yeah, man, I had to switch banks and you know, to a new bank. I was banking with, you know, insert large bank here. And they sent me, you know, I got a letter in the mail that said, you know, I could no longer, you know, I had to come get a cashier's check, and, you know, they would no longer hold my deposits. I don't know what's going on with them. You know, and he basically just shrugged it off and said, you know, no big deal. And I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of odd. Give me more information on what happened. And then he started to share, well, yeah, they actually, you know, the guy called me up, or I think I got another letter, and, you know, things that were asking me for some stuff. And, you know, I just kind of ignored it and, you know, didn't do anything with it. Well, here it turns out what they were asking for was, you know, reps and warrants that they had some kind of AML program. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he just kind of threw it in the trash and, you know, just disregarded it, you know, and then once again, at that point, that basically told them everything they needed to know as well, that, you know, this guy doesn't comply, and he's just, there's too much risk involved, because it was a pooled investment fund, you know, and that's when, and usually that's the thing that trips a lot of this off, is that once it gets into the compliance side of the house and they realize that there's a pooled investment fund or some kind of vehicle that will have many members, that's really when they start to, you know, to kind of raise the red flag. And I think that at the end of the day, what the banks are really looking for are these reps and warrants that say, we do this, we have an AML program, we do that, if this happens, we do this. And they just want it certified that you're doing it so that they can put it in the file, so that when FinCEN comes and does their audits, yeah, they can pull them out and say, see, these guys say they're doing it. But of course, you know, signing things and saying that you're doing things that you're not, as we can see, FinCEN will reach down into, you know, and start levying civil, you know, money fines and things like that that are, you know, very punitive.
And are you seeing this happen with a lot of different clients? I mean, is this
it's happening more and more. I was just on a call this morning talking with someone who's going to have, you know, Chinese investors coming into their new fund and things like that, and just, it's coming up. I mean, in fact, even the one who got kicked out of the bank in the New York City area, they had to end up going to 2 other banks before they could, you know, kind of get it sorted out. And then we, you know, because they're just, it's such a hot button.
And are they using your tool, the Marco? Or
yeah, and so ultimately that's what we're able to do, right? Is to provide them with. So we ended up at Fiducia Labs, you know, signed the rep and warrant letter stating that here we're doing this on behalf of this client with this bank account. They provide that to the bank, and then that's sufficient. That's sufficient for the bank.
So what are you doing at Fiducia, and what is Marco specifically doing to help SBRE entrepreneurs, you know, sort of combat this dynamic? And if you like, maybe tell a little bit more about what else the tool you know, can do and how it's serving that community.
Sure, yeah, and I think that goes back to kind of that unexpected trend that we saw, that, you know, we didn't expect this sort of thing would happen. We thought that we were, you know, building a tool that would provide investors kind of access, more better transparency into their account. It's kind of like online banking does for, you know, or your Schwab account or that sort of thing. That's what Marco does fundamentally. But the other piece that we built, which was kind of inadvertent, was the compliance, because many of our own investment funds have to run through a broker-dealer who's regulated by FINRA. And so we actually have an integration directly into a provider that can handle the AML and OFAC components. When the investor enters their information, it automatically checks and runs AML and OFAC against those investors. So if it's an individual investing, it's, you know, our tool takes care of it. But the area we realize now, that having this experience with our investors, is that one, we had to have our own AML program that was full blown, which we do have now. And the fact that we can kind of offer that outsourced AML program for our clients is great. But the blind spot in this is the very thing at the heart of why everyone's so, you know, FinCEN and, you know, these financialists are all worked up about this, is that when it comes to an entity, you don't know who's behind that. So you need to get, you know, you need to have the investor who might have some investment LLC that they've teed up. We need to reach out. We can't automate that, right? We have to have them kind of certify that here are the beneficiaries that own more than 25%. You know, here's the manager. And then we also then need to, you know, work with them to have those people, you know, run through our tech tool to do the AML and OFAC on them as well.
And this is not the same as verifying accreditation for the investor, correct?
No, that's different. Not. And that's another thing that our tool, we've built an integration that handles that as well. So we basically now are in the process of turning up a whole service segment to Fiducia Labs that handles really that investor onboarding function. Mm-hmm. Because many of these investors, I think, as you were probably alluding to, is just, they don't like this stuff. And in fact, many of them aren't accustomed to this level of sort of poking and prodding.
No, that's been my experience, is that it just, you know, there's frustration on the investor side because, you know, all of this stuff is like, well, why do I have to go through all of this? And of course, it's not because the manager enjoys having to perform all these things. It's because it's being driven by regulations. And if you've ever tried to get a commercial CMBS loan, commercial mortgage-backed security loan, and you know you have who the LLC and who owns more than 20%, and they got to run you through the whole. It's all the same.
It's all the same stuff.
Yeah,
it's all the same stuff. So investors are frustrated, and so that's where. So for us, our clients just aren't really equipped. I mean, many of them are, you know, like 5 people. They're real estate guys. They're great at acquiring and managing properties. It doesn't make financial sense for them to hire, compliance people. I mean, really, and if you turn up an AML program on your own, I mean, someone has to be, someone's got to be the compliance officer, and it can't be any garden variety employee. If they want that, they're going to want to get paid, 2x, especially now, given that, they can be personally liable. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so for us, it's a nice service for our clients to be able to get that commitment. Someone wants to invest $200,000 into their fund or the syndication, they can hand them over to the team at Fiducia Labs, and we can basically walk them all the way through using the technology to execute that subscription agreement and to make sure that all the compliance is being done. And it's as frictionless as it can be, right?
Yeah,
but
which is never without friction entirely, I'm sure, but as frictionless as one can make it with respect to with still having to deal with all the regulatory things. Well, as we get toward the end of the show here, Lance, do you want to take a minute or two and just tell us kind of overview of what, I know Marco sounds like it can do a lot of things with respect to helping you stay in compliance and so forth, but what else might it be able to do for small balance real estate entrepreneurs and investors that you guys over at Fiducia are proud of?
Yeah, sure. It's right now we're in the early stages of it, but really it's handling that cradle to grave, investor component. So from the time of the taking the commitment all the way through to handling distributions, allowing the investor to see their account online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
There's a lot of them out there these days, right, where they can see it online. I mean, what makes Marco different from the other ones where somebody can just log in and see it online?
Yeah, I think the big difference is the way we've architected ours is that since we work with a lot of investors, we realize that many of them are invested in with multiple sponsors. And the last thing they want to do is to log into 7 different portals with 7 different usernames and passwords. So we've built ours to where it's really, from the investor standpoint, if they're invested with one sponsor, they can log into that thing and see that specific investment. They can log in to kind of secure.getmarco.com and actually see all of their investments with all the sponsors that are on the platform in one place. Which is more of kind of like I say, that Schwab or TD Ameritrade sort of feel. And I think that's the big difference that we kind of have right now. Also, the fact that ours is all the transactions are kind of done within the system to handle the capital account maintenance. That's all done real time rather than having to kind of do that in Excel and then import it into the system. But really, that's just the tip of the iceberg for us as far as the vision. for the app is. We really want to kind of handle the asset origination and, some different, really everything that touches the SBRE entrepreneur side, so the asset side, asset management, and all those things, accounting, the whole nine.
Cool. Sounds pretty exciting. So if people want to find out more about what you're up to these days, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can go to fiducialabs.com. And we got all the contact information.
How do you spell it? Fiducia?
Fidu, Fiducia, SCIA.
Fiducia, like fiduciary, like trust.
Fiduciary minus the R and the Y. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Labs.com, and you can get all the information out there.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure. It's very exciting, and sounds like something that hopefully can be really good for you guys. And I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so you've been listening to SBRE Capital Matters, the only show anywhere that's dedicated exclusively to all things small balance real estate. We are committed to providing meaningful discussion, quality resources, and all kinds of good things for small balance real estate entrepreneurs. You can find us live on Wednesday mornings from 10:30 to 11 on octalkradio.net. The shows will also be available on sbrefunds.com/radio after the fact if you want to listen there. And if you want to suggest topics, guests, or other things that you'd like to hear about on SBRE Capital Matters, please send it to ask@fairwayamerica.com, and we'll do our best to get somebody on the show for you as quickly as we can. So thank you very much for listening. And remember, when it comes to small balance real estate, capital matters.
You have been listening to SBRE Capital Matters, hosted by Matt Burke. To enjoy other episodes, please visit www.sbrefunds.com/radio. Nothing in this show is intended to be or should be accepted as legal, accounting, or investment advice. None of the Fairway America companies provide that kind of professional service to SBRE entrepreneurs or investors. Fairway America strongly encourages anyone offering or making SBRE investments to work with qualified attorneys, accountants, and investment advisors to help them navigate the many legal and similar issues that are not addressed here. The small balance real estate community is growing, comprised of serious real estate entrepreneurs and savvy high net worth investors. The shared abundance mindset is a bond. SBREfunds.com is where the SBRE community gathers to grow their knowledge and their portfolios. If you are looking for SBRE investment opportunities, educational content across the spectrum of SBRE-focused topics, and an online resource exclusively servicing the flourishing SBRE community, then SBREfunds.com welcomes you.
You're tuned to OC Talk Radio. OC Talk Radio.
High net worth investors are increasingly demanding that alternative investment asset managers of all kinds, hedge fund, private equity, and real estate managers alike, provide them with access to reporting and information on par to the public markets. They want something that is easy and transparent. The innovative team at Fiducia Labs